It felt like my soul had been someplace else for a really, really long time.
I entered into the eye of the storm of grief that I had been carrying. I began to cry.
The littlest thing would just send me into an anxiety spiral that, like, it's just one little thing. Why is this little thing ruining my day?
Eleusinia is a unique psilocybin retreat based in Mexico with a focus on meditation, neuroscience, and brain health.
I had zero doubt that this was something that I was going to go through and actually do.
That self-compassion sort of has trickled into every little part of my life.
I hadn't laughed that hard in so long.
The profoundness with which I experienced like reality, the magnitude of the beauty was just completely overwhelming.
Andrew, it's so nice to see you again. Thank you so much for joining the show today. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and why you decided to come to Eleusinia?
Sure. Hi, Tanya. Nice to see you again. It's your smiling face. I chose to come to Eleusinia. I guess maybe a little history, a little background of what got me to that point. You know, as a young person, I had recreational experiences with psychedelics here and there and learned a little bit, but that's developed significantly, you know, throughout the years, and especially with the opportunity to go to Eleusinia about, well, just over 7 years ago, I suppose. My life was going very well, but I've constantly battled with substance use disorder, alcohol, and that has impacted my life throughout the years in a lot of ways, and many of them very positive. But, you know, with any type of coping mechanism, you know, they were great until they don't. And so that was a lot of my path, and I had battled with it, and I had lost my father and ended up having to be the decision maker throughout that process, and pulled the plug on him. And he was a big addictions guy and was sober for 28 years before he died, and left his funeral and went away to a 30-day treatment facility. And my wife was incredible. The babies were young, 1 and 3. You know, she held down the fort, and I was able to go away for 30 days and come home. And it was a look at a new life. And I was home for 4 weeks, and my son had come up to the bedroom and tapped me, and, you know, it was in the morning, but she had gotten up early with the kids, and he, you know, kind of whimpered, "Daddy, Daddy," and I grabbed him and I pulled him up on me, and he said, "Daddy, Mommy fell and hit her head, and she's not talking to me." And I ran downstairs, and there she lay on the ground, unconscious, cool to the touch. Didn't know what to do. Performed CPR. We got the ambulance here, and were able to get a pulse back on her. And we spent the next week at our local hospital up here in northern Michigan in a coma. And then the following 11 weeks, also in a coma down at University of Michigan. Eventually had to make the same decision for her as I had to make for my dad. And, you know, that all happened really quickly. And it was a traumatic, crazy time in life. But I maintained through white knuckles an alcohol-free lifestyle, but it was purely survival. And it was extremely difficult. And I had a lot of support and a lot of love and a lot of help, but I also gained a lot of confidence in that process, and, you know, allowed some of those vices back into my life and gave myself a pass to drink again. And if I could do this, then I can beat that. Like that's nothing. And it served me really well for a while, again, until it didn't. So through that process, I guess a lot of things showed their face, given anxiety, depression, PTSD, substance use disorders. So I had just so many things going on and so many mental things that it was hard to even identify everything of even how did I feel? What was it? Well, and, since then, we've come a long way. I've met an incredible woman in my life, and she's amazing and has totally supported my exploration and trying to figure these things out. I guess in my long-winded answer, how did I end up at Eleusinia, was for really mental health and emotional health. When you're at the point where you try anything to say, what do I feel? Why do I feel this way? And I don't want to mask this by taking all kinds of prescription drugs. And you go to your doctor and they want to give you an answer, and then you start some type of antidepressant or whatever the Western medicine protocol is at that point. And it seems like if this isn't working, we'll just throw more at it and more at it and more at it and mix this up. And then you're chasing these things around. And again, you get lost in the ability to identify, what are my emotions? Like, what is it? Tell me what to work on. I'm happy to work on it, but it's the confusion. So I sought Eleusinia to find a way to really go inside and identify, what am I feeling? Maybe why do I feel that way? But just what is it? Just a balcony view. And, from educating myself and really trying to study the benefits of psychedelics in mental health, decided Eleusinia would be a wonderful opportunity to go and work on these specific kinds of things.
And you were able to bring a friend. Did that turn out to be a good thing? Did you enjoy coming with a friend?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to have someone that we grew up together, went to high school together, have a huge history of being able to be brutally honest with one another and do this together was really outstanding. What a gift for us both to be able to do it at the same time. I had done one other retreat in the past and I actually seen couples that have gone, and that's brave. I think that's very brave of people. But yes, to go with Gus and have a safe space like that and then relieve any type of the anxiety that would go along with doing something like this was really, really helpful and really grounding. But you guys also do a great job of that.
So can you walk us through what happened with your macrodose? Where was your head at as the ceremony began? How were you feeling at that point?
Like I said, most of my experience in the past had been pretty recreationally. And to do this process with the reverence and the ceremonial aspect and really view this as some type of, a spiritual, it's spiritual work, there's so many things encapsulated in that. But I guess I'd also like to say the format I thought was really cool and start off right away and go to the macrodose. And with any of that, you're going to have some kind of anxiety. And that, I guess, is where the oxymoron is, or the conundrum of using psychedelics, as it's going to take you where you need to go. And there's really nothing you can do about it. You're not the author of that. That's already sort of there. So, I guess I say conundrum because it's like you're going to have some anxieties about it, but the less anxiety you have, or the more latitudes in your thoughts in allowing and being vulnerable and being open, it seems like the more gentle that process can be. And we talked a lot about valence, and that was some of the educational stuff that we did. Jessica talked about, a high valence experience. There's no such thing as a good trip or a bad trip or anything. I guess it's the valence, and it's however those thoughts and emotions pour out of you, whatever they're going to be.
So your head was in a good place because it was a different ritual experience than any of your recreational. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. And Josefina's was so amazing. Yes, in treating it that way as the almost, I don't know, like a sacrament or something like this, the respect for the process becomes very personal. But I was in a really good place, and the way the day started was fantastic. And we do the breath work and the energy work and the way to prepare yourself. And my experience was was very gentle on me. I mean, there were some hard moments, and you go through some times where your mind throws some stuff at you, and it's like, where did that even come from? Where did this thought come from? And I think that was exactly kind of what I was looking for. And although at times I feel like I have more questions than answers, that's sort of the point, is this is all a journey. It's a practice. It's a process. And this is a tool to remove my ego, go totally inward, and have that opportunity in a safe, undistracted space where you can allow yourself to be totally vulnerable and let your mind percolate and organize some things for you.
So you say that your experience was light on you. So what happened first? Were you feeling some ease and joy before those thoughts came, or what was that looking like?
Well, I guess I know when I first got there, when I met with Josephina, in 30 seconds, it felt like she looked through my entire soul. And she just told me, she's like, oh, you're tight, you're holding on to these things. And I didn't have any idea what that meant. And that was the day before. So that, I have to admit, that was kind of in the back of my head of like, oh my gosh, what am I holding back? Is this going to affect this process? So I say it was gentle because, I didn't have any demons or negative experiences or any darkness or anything like that. I would say everything was generally high valence with a lot of metaphorical insights, and some that didn't make exact sense at the time, but we've been back for just a few weeks now, maybe 2. And some of those things are making a lot of sense. And so going macrodose, first day, I found my first nest where he found my hawk necklace for me. And that's my dad's symbol. It was unbelievable. And I wore this hawk necklace. And the next thing the next time I saw you was 2 hours later. It was the exact same time that the hawks, plural, started flying overhead. And all I could do was just point at you with this huge, joyous face. Like, do you see this? Do you see this? And the hawks appeared. And that, to me, was just a glimpse to the other side a little bit of the veil of those who've passed, and just the underlying concept of psychedelics in general, and some of the revelations that you come to. And that's that we're all connected. We're all connected as humans. We're all connected to this earth by our feet. And there's something much larger at work. And we're small, but we're mighty at the same time. We're these little humans, but at the same time, we're little telecommunicators that possess a lot of energy and a lot of influence when directed.
So you were really dropped in at that time, and the veil, as you say, was lifted. Were you having a lot of visual experiences? Was the visual world beautiful, or were you just really in more of an emotional place?
No, the visual world was incredible. It was absolutely beautiful. I mean, the mosaic behind the trees, and you just become so connected. Like, you can feel the earth breathe. You can feel the trees move. You can, there's such a hypersensitivity to hearing and seeing and smelling. And I just remember being fixated on this valley that then had the mountain in the background. And it just kept coming to me over and over, is that the path. You see it. It's in front of you. And you know what to do. And what I realized in that is that my job to be the best version is to be the best version of myself, is to take care of myself, to be able to love others the way that I want to be able to, which I do, and to have that same love of myself and forgiveness. And I was given such a wonderful sense of gratitude. And the other overwhelming, I guess it was highly emotional, but the other emotion really that kept coming through was like, I get I get to live this life. I get to raise these babies. I get to fall in love again. I get to be me. It's an opportunity. So to be able to view life that way and realize that, there are so many things that we aren't in control of. And there's a beautiful irony in by relinquishing the reins or your desire to control things, the more you inherently kind of control it. It's like almost, it's sort of the way to mentally prepare yourself to dial in and dip into a psychedelic experiences.
So that part sounds like in tuned and empowered, knowing that you know the path and that it's right in front of you and that you get to live this life. And it was so beautiful what you said. So was there another insight? Because you mentioned that there was an insight that you didn't understand until you started to come back. Like what was the second part after that?
I guess it had to do a little bit with Josefina saying it will happen. These things, once you begin to vibrate at a certain level, the ones that aren't able to vibrate at that level or exist at, I don't want to sound arrogant or funny about higher consciousness or any of these things like this. I don't feel like any type of enlightened one or anything like that. But there is a difference in my tolerance for who I want to be around. And I feel like I don't have time for any negative energy or negative influence in my life. And all of a sudden it was like some of these things that you hang on to and you fight for out of principle, and you're going to pick up that sword every single day and go fight for this thing. And I think that's kind of what's going away is I'm better equipped to realize, like, what am I fighting for? And to basically let some things go. And those are some long-standing relationships of friends and supporters, and that have had a very valuable station in my life at certain points. But when judgment overrules out of it or help or love or something like this, then some of those relationships begin to have their own levels of toxicity.
So you're finding that naturally you're able to kind of garden and weed out your community to where it's a little bit more of a nourishing place for you to thrive so that you can love the ones you love the way you want to.
You said it so much more beautifully than I would ever be able to. But yeah, I mean, I just know what I'm willing to not anymore. I know that I have a better sense of, wow, that's not okay with me. That's not okay. So from that standpoint, it's helped me to gain that clarity and confidence of, I can't articulate exactly what it is, but, I went there seeking contentment, direction, and understanding. And I can say that my understanding of what I don't want is much more clear. Once you eliminate some of those things, and then you can allow for the positive things in life, they present themselves. It's seeming that way. I just know that I feel very light and clear right now.
Wow. So was it hard for you to come back, know what you don't want and have to draw some hard lines, or is this process unfolding a little naturally for you?
I think it's doing it on its own. I think that's the best part. But I'm able to identify it. So what is my role in that? And
I relate to that so much because no one articulated that as well as you did just now, but I also felt the same way. I felt like, I think I told you this, that boundaries just naturally unfurled like bows on a wedding gown. It just felt so natural. Everything felt so natural. So it's beautiful to hear you say that it's feeling really natural and kind of part of the process.
Yeah, there's a lightness that goes along with not having to necessarily force. Maybe I learned something about surrender, acceptance in a healthy way, in our hypercritical capitalist culture established this desire to want everything right now. And you hear a problem and I'm going to fix the problem. And that's just actually rarely possible. Problems can be identified and they can be managed, but to just say, I want to go fix that, it doesn't work like that. It's a process similar to having a psychedelic experience. It's a process, and each one is different with its own lessons or tidbits of guidance. So it's openness. In the end, it's all about love. It's very simple, and it sounds kind of cliche. But I think I said to you down there, the one thing that came to my mind was just be of good heart. And that's your legacy. That's what's important, is to be present and love what's around you and be able to recognize the right now. How many people do you say, oh my gosh, those were the good days. Oh, back then. And maybe that's right now. So to be present in today, whatever that is.
I remember you saying that, and also saying that was something that your grandfather said, or was it your father? Be of good heart.
It was my grandfather. Yes.
And so is this something he always said, or once or twice to you?
A few times. Just a few times.
And that is this something that kind of sat in the back of your head and you just kind of thought, oh, that's cool. But then as you've moved through your life and your hardships and the psychedelic journey just really came to the forefront.
Yeah, it was one of those things that was in there that I had no idea was in the back of my mind. And somehow when we were downloading, that came to mind. And it was so simple, but so relevant and so clear. And, I remember when he was dying and what his process was like. And he fought and fought and fought. And he was an insightful guy, an old anesthesiologist. So I don't think he ever had any experience with psychedelics or anything like that. But I just remember my mom telling the story of him being pretty close to the end. And she asked, are you ready, Dad? And he said, I'm ready, but are you ready? And I know that stuck with her for a long, long time as well.
Yeah, that is such a beautiful one. So in the beginning of this podcast, you said, I really wanted to see what I feel. But it's kind of blossomed into this discussion of be of good heart and this openness and surrender. So within openness, surrender, and being of good heart, were you able to see more of what you feel? Was that more opportunities to acknowledge the tremendous amount of grief and hardship that you endured, or what did that look like?
Yeah, but it's strange how it manifests into true gratitude. I can't explain it. I don't know how that works, but when you realize how fragile the human life can be, as resilient as we are as little creatures, we're still incredibly fragile. And that part can be taken away at any moment. And we just don't know what happens beyond that. And that's okay. We're not supposed to. We're not able to. But what I have been able to do is realize I have everything. It's all right here. And I've always kind of known that. And that's why I was always puzzled of why so much vodka in my life. The other thing that's happened is there's a compulsion to drink that has left me, at least for now. I know that, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. I don't know what that is. I don't know. There's a desire that has been hopefully permanently, but at least temporarily removed. I have a beautiful life. I have amazing children, an amazing woman that supports me incredibly, that I'm so lucky to have so many friends and family and so much support around me. I'm just a grateful human.
That's so beautiful. Amazing. So how was your other experiences? What was the DMT like for you?
The DMT was very powerful. It was very powerful. And I liked it. I have experience with ayahuasca in the past, but that's, 8, 10, 12 hours. Doing the DMT experience in a little bit of a different fashion, 10 to 15 minutes was was nice. I personally, I had to open my eyes relatively quickly, but I was definitely transported back in time. And all of a sudden the house looked like this lodge from 1,000 years ago. And we were in the valley out there, and it was the center of the world. It was, there was like some kind of portal. I think I said to Jessica and Josephina that, God, this is the center of the earth. So there's something magical about the place and the setting and where we were. And I just remember transcending time completely. It was irrelevant. It was this long continuum, that this is where we happen to be on that continuum right now. It's filled with all these Aztec shapes and geometric structures that I was transported back in time. That's all I could say. It was very powerful. I was really thirsty, and I didn't have my glasses on, and I couldn't see well in the distance. There was somebody coming up with an agua fresca, and it couldn't have been, like, the messenger couldn't have been at a more perfect time. It was the best agua fresca I've ever had in my life. And then, for whatever reason, being a Catholic school kid that challenged it at every single corner, the guy that would bring Joseph Campbell books to religion class, and a constant battle with organized religion versus spirituality and what that is, and being hung up on defining things and having to have its place and a label and a box and a place to put it. And after that, I don't know why, but I felt compelled to go and walk down to the church. And I don't know. I just went there, and it was very nice. And it was calm. And for whatever reason, that's where my body was told it needed to be. And it took me probably 30 minutes after that to kind of gather myself, of just quiet time before I was ready to sort of integrate back into the group. And it was a great adjustment. And I guess that's also how I viewed Eleusinia after having some ayahuasca experience and doing some other things. I mean, this was such a nice check-in for my mental hygiene, I guess, is really what it feels like. It's the ability to shut your phone off and go work on you. I could go work on myself without any distractions and process. And I think that's something that we've all gotten away from in our current culture, just because of the demands of life and children and work and aging parents and all of the things that we all go through in our ability or our attempt to be productive, successful humans.
I remember you said you were looking for clarity, direction. So it feels like the direction really did kind of come through with you seeing that the path is right in front of you. And then it sounds like you got a lot of clarity, especially with how you're kind of weeding out the garden of your community. And then contentment too,
I feel very contented. I have to say that there's the tight chest and anxious has been very calm ever since I've been home.
So is that what you think Josephina was referring to? Because you said you didn't know what to make of that when she had originally said that. You recognize that was something you were carrying, because, we don't realize we're carrying these things somatically until they're gone.
Completely. After she said that, and then I actually just did like a little body scan. I was like, oh my gosh, she's so right. I am so tense. I'm like, what am I clenching? What am I holding on to? And it's fear. It's all fear. That's what anxiety is. That's what depression generally is. It's the fear of not knowing. And we're all looking for that contentment. And maybe that just has to do with letting go. And some people want to refer to that as faith or whatever it is. But the understanding that maybe we're not in control of this ship. And there's something far, far greater at work. And accepting that and realizing that whatever that is incomprehensible to our human brains. And that's okay. I guess that's it. It's okay.
And I remember you saying, to go back just a little bit, it was like you were saying that the veil was thin and that you really felt your father coming through as that hawk. But I remember you talking about the yellow butterflies.
For sure. And that was Kylie. That was my late wife. It was pretty incredible. And that's what occurred when I had done her ashes years ago, is all of a sudden these two little yellow butterflies started frolicking around. And then there were two hawks overhead. Or there was one, and then there were two, and then they'd taken off into the distance. And the same thing happened with the butterflies. They kind of just drifted off into nowhere. So I could feel their presence in a very calm, supportive way. They're okay. And I'm okay. And there's a tremendous amount of comfort in that, is that the veil is thin, but I want to make my experience on this side of the veil as positive as possible. And I guess it's it. It's love. It's I feel a little cliche and a little cheesy sometimes saying it like that. But if you have that, then the balance is going to be the balance.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much. That's just such a beautiful story. And thanks for sharing all of that and your experience emotionally and where you're at and what it's been like. It means so much to me, Andrew.
You mean so much to me.
Yeah, well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all so much for listening. You can find all the information that you need to learn everything about this retreat on eleusiniaretreat.com. We are a retreat that offers ongoing integration support, breathwork classes, and cultivation support after you have attended this retreat. It's an amazing experience that's one of its kind. If you're looking for a science-based retreat, something out of the box, something to change your life, something to add to your practice, this is where you really need to start, eleusiniaretreat.com.